differently. Now, before we move on to a different topic, what do you think of the fact that a lot of these instances, and I'm certainly not defending the cops, this was a tragic incident, a tragic loss of life, and we don't have the facts from the trial yet, so I wouldn't presume to make a judgment about it. But what do you think of the fact that nobody in the media talks about the fact that these victims were breaking the law, and that if they didn't break the law, it might not have provoked these actions? Isn't that at least worth discussing?
Liz, you make a good point, okay? These individuals were breaking the law. But to elevate it to the point of death is absolutely not right, okay? For someone to have a traffic violation and then to be shot and killed is not right. For someone to be walking around with a pellet gun, then to be shot and killed is not right. There's a medium to it. And this individual, he got in a scuffle with the officer and he ran away and the officer shot him at that time. If they're fighting the officer, if they're pulling a gun on the officer, that's a different scenario, and that needs to be looked into deeper.
Right, it's not just pulling a gun, it's whether or not the police officer feels the perception, if there's a perceived threat to his well-being. And that's what I think that we a lot of times overlook when we're talking about these cases. We overlook the perspective of the cop. And again, I'm not coming to the defense of this police officer. I don't know the facts of the case yet because it hasn't been tried. There's always new things that come out. But we miss the point. We neglect to talk about the fact that these officers perceive a threat. We only see the dashboard cam that shows the victim running away. We don't see the actual scuffle. We don't see the instance where they're confronted. We don't see whether he turned and attacked or what happened. And why aren't we talking about this?
Absolutely true. So what the standard is whether the officer objectively believed that. So it's not, or subjectively believed that. It doesn't need to be an objective belief. It's whether he, in his shoes, at that time, believed that that reasonable force was necessary. And if that is the case, then what they did is completely legal. But the argument to the other side is this individual was running away from the officer at the time. There was no indications that he was going to turn around or shoot, or the officer was in fear for his life. So if the officer is going to testify that he subjectively believed that in that situation, then he may have a valid defense.
Right, but I think we also overlook the fact that if someone's running away, the right thing to do isn't necessarily just to let them go. And so he may not have had a perceived threat at the moment that he was running away, but is it the right thing to just let him keep running? Or is there a pursuit that goes hand in hand with the fact that he was stopped for another violation?
Well, there can be a pursuit. I mean, they can chase this individual, they can call in other officers, but to kill him at that point, I think that's taking it a little bit too far. That's a drastic measure in that situation. They shot and killed him. They could have chased him. They could have went after him. They could have ran after him, but they didn't have to kill him in that situation. I think that force used was a little bit excessive in that situation.
And I just think that we need to talk more about the fact that when we're okaying the fact that there was a pursuit, that there was a confrontation, that we need to at least look at the fact that once the confrontation did happen, what was the perceived threat, instead of assuming that it was escalated to that use of force without any provocation on the part of the victim.